Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Grajdek. I'm Dr. Martha Grajdek. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. Humor can be a wonderful thing. You've probably heard the expression that laughter can be the best medicine. And this is where humor comes in. It can lighten up a situation, liven up a party, and generally make things easier and more pleasant in social situations. But when it comes to humor at the workplace, this is where sometimes things can get tricky. When it comes to people at the workplace, people who surround us, people with whom we spend our days, it is likely that this is a mix of people who may have different ideas when it comes to considering what is funny, when it comes to a sense of humor. We may work in a place that includes a variety of different people, variety of backgrounds, differences in ages, gender, and generational differences, just to name a few. So when it comes to a sense of humor, it's important to remember that the right circumstances and the right type of humor can make things quite pleasant at work. However, when humor goes wrong, it can go really wrong at the workplace. Let's start by pointing out the obvious, that humor and jokes and joking around while at work does require a certain level of discernment and a certain level of maturity. There is a time and a place for joking around, but that may not be all the time. After all, when we're talking about work, we're there to get things done. We're there to get things accomplished. So, joking around may not always be appropriate. So, that's the starting point. Understanding when it is appropriate to lighten things up with humor. The other big thing about humor, especially at the workplace, is to understand the difference between inclusive humor and humor that divides or excludes or targets others. A good rule to go by when it comes to being funny at work or enjoying humor at work is to make sure that the humor that we bring to the workplace is not one that divides people. We don't want to alienate anyone, pick on anyone, or embarrass or humiliate anyone. That should be a given, but unfortunately, it's something that in some circumstances, in certain places, has to be pointed out. Humor can be a wonderful thing to bring people together at the workplace, but again, it's important that any attempts of humor are ones that are not harmful to someone, that are not at someone's expense, but rather it's humor that brings people together. Having some fun while focusing on innocent things. So once again, leave out things that would bring out things such as gender or age or cultural differences. Anything such as race or sexual orientation are off the table. And while it goes without saying, once again I will say it, a good sense of humor at work needs to be an appropriate sense of humor. That means we should not be picking on anyone or making a point to embarrass or humiliate them. And unfortunately, there are people out there who will say, well, if you avoid all of those things, there is no options for humor left. But nothing could be further from the truth. Humor can be quite innocent. You don't have to focus on embarrassing or humiliating someone, or on pointing somebody else's faults or laughing at their misfortune in order to enjoy a sense of humor. It may be okay to poke fun at yourself as a way of bringing others together and getting others to laugh or chuckle along with you. But you don't want to take that too far. So now that I've outlined some of the basics of using humor at the workplace, let's take a look at why humor can be so beneficial for us at work. First, as I've already mentioned, laughter has been said to be the best medicine. When we laugh, our bodies release feel-good hormones. We're able to reduce stress, and it provides a way for us to bond with others. Having a good laugh session with another person or a group of people can provide a set of memories, which can then create a bond. This is great for building teams and strengthening relationships at work. Workplace humor can not only help us to connect with others and to reduce stress, it can also benefit individuals and the workplace with things such as increased creativity and improved collaboration. So it's not a secret that when done right, workplace humor can be a wonderful thing. And again, remember, there's a time and a place for everything. So we are not at work to make jokes all day long. But when it is appropriate, safe humor, appropriate humor, can lighten the situation, reduce stress, strengthen relationships, bring people together, and help creativity to flow. When humor is not done right, especially at the workplace, it can really backfire. It can be quite ugly. So what is bad humor? As I already mentioned, anything that alienates someone else or a group of people, anything that embarrasses others, or any form of harassment that is thought of as humor but is really harassment, that is not okay. That has the opposite effects. It's inappropriate, it's unprofessional, and it should not be happening. Workplace humor can be incorporated not only into the workplace experience and the workplace environment, but also into the workplace culture. This is where leadership plays such an important role. Leaders need to lead by example first and foremost. It's important that leadership makes it very clear what the place of humor is within the workplace and what kind of humor is acceptable, embraced, and encouraged, and which type of humor will not be accepted or tolerated at the workplace. Everyone can contribute by focusing on positive humor at the workplace. As I said, the benefits of humor, especially good, healthy, positive humor, can be tremendous. Another important point when it comes to workplace humor is to be aware of your audience. If you're attempting to bring a little bit of humor into the workplace experience, know your audience and pay attention to their reactions. Just because a story or a joke was a hit at a party with your friends doesn't mean it's workplace appropriate. Think before you open your mouth, and then make sure that you are paying attention to the reactions that you're getting. Having said all that, if you keep it clean and make sure it's inclusive rather than humor that divides, humiliates, embarrasses, or harasses others, you're likely to be on a road to success when it comes to workplace humor. Some of you may be wondering, if humor at work is this complicated or this complex as it may seem, then why bother at all? Should we maybe instead leave humor out of the workplace altogether? The answer to that is that it depends. Some workplaces really have very little room for workplace humor. So that will depend on the workplace, on the kind of work that is done there. But most places can stand to introduce at least a little bit of humor into the environment. So again, it's about discernment. But as mature adults with jobs, we should be able to assess a situation and understand whether or not humor is appropriate at our particular workplace. Just as we need humor and laughter and joy in our lives in general, so too, the right kind of humor, positive, clean humor, can be very beneficial for us at the workplace. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. Workplace humor can be tremendously beneficial, but only if it's done right. When workplace humor goes wrong, it can be destructive and detrimental. Workplace humor should focus on a positive experience where it's inclusive to the audience rather than dividing people. Workplace humor should never alienate, humiliate, embarrass, or harass anyone. Leadership has an important responsibility to lead by example. Workplace humor is something that can be part of the workplace experience, the environment itself, and the workplace culture. As is always the case with humor at any place, discernment is a big deal. Know what's appropriate before you open your mouth, and watch for the reactions that you get. Keep in mind that some places can handle more humor than others. And finally, while humor can come with many benefits, work, after all, is a place to get things done. A little bit of humor can go a long way. As the week unfolds, I encourage you to consider humor as it may exist in your own workplace. How much humor is there, and what are the results of the humor that you experience at the workplace? Is it humor that is inclusive and positive for everyone's experience, or is it one that divides and alienates people? If you're in a role of leadership, it is absolutely up to you to set an example of what's appropriate and what is not acceptable. Remember, the benefits of humor are many, but only if it's done right, especially when we're considering the workplace experience. For those of you who experience this podcast in an audio-only version, I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel, Stress Free with Dr. G, where you can find the video version of the podcast. While you're there, check out some of the other videos which focus on stress management. Stress Free with Dr. G is found on YouTube, and the link for that is in the description below. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I look forward to seeing you here again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.